You need to upgrade a system or a website, but it's being postponed endlessly to the point that your business actually begins to suffer. With time, such upgrades become even more and more complex, and at some point this of course becomes a vicious circle, and all the relations between all the subsystems, if you have them, become almost unbearable. Because of that, you neither have the new system in place, nor you can switch off the old one. So what to do? Well, there is a potential solution. It's called the Strangler Pattern, and it allows you to gradually replace the old system with a new one. Keep on watching my video, where I'll try to show you exactly how you can make this work into your advantage. I'll tell you also about all the bad things that can happen and the stuff that you will know that you have to throw to the bin later on once you're ready, but it's definitely worth doing it, especially if you are scared about the potential financial resources you have to have if you want to execute a full rewrite. What is the Strangler Pattern? I know it sounds a little bit anonymous, but believe me, it's actually a very good thing. Strangler Pattern, it's a pattern in software development that allows you to gradually replace an old system with a new one. What's very important here is that you work on the edges of the old system and you begin to replace it with a new one. Why is it such a great thing? Well, simply because it allows you to avoid all the risks that are associated with the big bang replacement. And in this case, you can take a gradual, low-risk road and replace everything bit by bit. What's even more important, you can refine and improve the new system as you build it on the go. What's most important in Strangler Pattern, it allows you to run the old system. I mean, it will still be in place. So this means you don't have to be ready with everything at one time. And this is very important to your business continuity and to your liquidity, because very few companies can actually afford a full rewrite that can be executed overnight. This pattern is not exclusive to software development. Of course, if you have a chance, you can use it in almost any other place where you have some form of modular architecture, or where you can actually replace some of the elements of the system just like Lego bricks. It also protects you from something else. Imagine you actually do a full rewrite of your old system and you put the new system magically overnight. Basically, you hope it's going to work exactly as it should. You will probably implement some new things, but you have zero customer feedback. When you execute the Strangler Pattern, you're actually able to develop the new system bit by bit. You're able to get customer feedback. You're able to test new things. You're actually able to minimize the amount of potential big mistakes that can even ruin your business. This is why it's so important to actually have it divided into multiple sub-steps, and the Strangler Pattern enables you to do exactly that. In DevOps, we have things like canary releases, and of course we can build smaller beta groups and so on and so on. The Strangler Patterns basically supports this form of development, and as I said before, the customer feedback in this case, it's worth all the gold you can imagine, because exactly that, you can replace the old system with a new one, and you can refine it with the customer feedback that you're gonna get on the fly. I have seen many examples in the past where some good products were replaced by an improved, rewritten version and so on, but these versions, they were actually horrible, and this cost the companies very often losing even a quarter of their customer base just because they were not happy with the new interface. So are there any disadvantages? Well, yes, there are. Just like with the Indian Ocean that you can see behind my back, the load side isn't particularly nice. The same thing is with the Strangler Pattern. It has some not nice things within itself, as I will show you later on. These drawbacks, that's something you can actually work around, and some of these things actually can be maybe even put to your own advantage. And this is the same situation as you can see here. People learned how to use the tides to their own advantages, even though they don't look that spectacular. I mentioned previously prefixing. Well, from my personal experience, doing proper prefixing always helped me later on when I had to upgrade the systems or I had to do something interesting there. Prefixing in software development is a simple idea, and it can be applied into almost any stage of software development. But what I would like to focus on here is the little bits. And here I'm mostly thinking about website URLs and API routes and so on. If you have prefixes there, that allows you to introduce a completely new version of an API, a completely new version of a website. You can even take a subdomain if you have a chance to do this. But the most important thing is you can actually do a composition of multiple systems and you can have them running at the same time. And if you do it smart, you can make it look to the end customer like it was exactly the same product, even though it's being, completely rewritten behind the scenes. But the thing is, proper prefixing done from the very beginning, it doesn't incur a lot of extra development. Prefixing, it's easy to implement and it doesn't require that you write a lot of code and so on. Adding extra routes makes it possible later on to do something very interesting. And if you ask me, yes, we will never upgrade this system or this version is final. Well, this usually means that the version is not final and you will do a total rewrite sooner than you expected. So proper prefixing software means that it's much easier to apply the Strangler pattern later on. It will simply make the pattern more effective and less disruptive. Of course, like any other technique, it has some downsides too. The Strangler pattern isn't free. It will incur additional development costs, and usually you will have to do this because you will have to develop some form of glue code. When I mention glue code, it's exactly the thing that you know. So basically it's supposed to be something that is going to connect the old system with the new one. But this code will be so specialized that once you are done with your upgrade, this code you will have to throw out to the trash because most likely it will not be useful for anything else. The other thing is that strangling is also usually very complex in its nature. And finding the right way to do this is not really straightforward, and this will require some additional thinking, and you will definitely have to have an expert on your side. Then why people still do this? Well, it's still cheaper and less risky than doing a big bang replacement, which I have mentioned previously in the beginning of the video. It's an important thing to keep strangling as short as possible because during that time, during the process, you will actually have to maintain two systems or more if you're replacing more at the same time. And that of course means that you will have a slower pace when it comes to development, and of course you will be distracted, and that also means slightly higher development costs. Strangler pattern will most likely minimize the downtime, but it will not completely remove it. But from my personal experience, I can tell you that in most cases, the amount of downtime I had to have when I was strangling my systems was absolutely minimal. So it's definitely worth it. When you have two systems, you actually might end up with two sources of truth. This is something I mentioned before, that strangling isn't straightforward and you have to find the right way of doing this. And this is one of the problems when you strangle the systems and you actually end up with two sources of truth. You still have to maintain integrity. And this is here where all the best programmers really have to think heavily in order to find a good solution so that the data in those two systems, the integrity is intact. Another trap here is that when you develop the new system and you gradually replace the old one, you sometimes forget that the new one has to scale just as good as the old one. And this is usually discovered when least expected, meaning when your customers storm everything and suddenly you figure out nothing works. Of course, there are also commercially available products on the market that allow you to make strangling even quicker or more effective. And I'm not saying that these products are bad. The only thing you have to remember is that if you decide to strangle your systems with some commercial solution, make sure that you will not end up in a situation that you are in a vendor lock-in. And that means that you will end up with a new system that is irreplaceable later on. Time for the real example from Effihub. As of 2023, we are still strangling our systems because at some point we decided to change our programming stack and completely change the way we build our product. Of course, hiring an army of programmers, doing an overnight replacement of everything, that was not an option. We have too much old code, which is good, but has to be replaced. So of course, strangling was a natural way. The way we do this, we also develop new bits in the system. Luckily, all our routes, all our URLs were prefixed in some form. That allowed us, of course, to make a very nice introduction of the new parts of the system. And what's very important, we were also able to have a natural fallback solution if something went completely south and the wrong way. As of today, we have 4 systems. 1 legacy and 3 new ones. The 3 new systems, that's a new backend API, that's a new frontend, and a new server, let's call it a backend for handling WebSocket communication. In the beginning, we had 1 more legacy system that was a specialized WebSocket solution, but that was replaced very quickly by the new backend that is now functioning as a full-blown WebSocket solution for us. I said previously, you have to develop some glue code that you will have to throw out to trash. This is exactly what we did. We have a specialized glue code, which is very complex. We had to design a new protocol so that our frontends, they can talk together. What is important here is that graphically we have made it in such a way that customers more or less have no idea that they are working with 4 systems at a time, because they more or less look the same. Of course, there are some slight changes, but it is possible to make it look very close so that the overall UI experience is very good. We have also some glue code on the backend. That was again some complex code, and this code will have to be thrown out once we are done. Without Strangler Pattern, it wouldn't be possible to do it in such a way. One more thing, all the routes, everything I did in Effihub was nicely prefixed, so it was extremely easy to introduce those things, and we had some fallback solutions in case introduction of a new service didn't work out as expected and so on. So doing a little bit of proper development in the first place will pay off in the long run. We are still using only 1 database, so the integrity problem that I mentioned before, it's a little bit easier from our point of view, but we still have to be extremely careful when we work with both backends, because the new backend has a lot more knowledge about all the tables and some extra columns than the old one. So this of course incurs a little bit extra development and some extra tracking, but as I said before, it's definitely worth the effort, and it's in the end much cheaper than doing the big bang replacement. Did I know that at some point we are going to replace our stack and the whole thing is going to get so complex? Absolutely no. But as an experienced developer, I'm using in my work a set of tools that allow me to implement such strategies, like for example the Strangler Pattern, much easier. And this is exactly the same in case of the route prefixes that I mentioned. If you have them from the very beginning, doing some juggling and adding new things and so on, it will become even easier as we progress. This will also help you if you are doing any form of public API. So from that point of view, sticking to the good principles of software development, in the long run, it always helps. But of course, it is a balance, because premature optimization, trying to predict every possible outcome, will make your code bloated, slow, and very difficult to maintain. There is a great book that doesn't explain the technical details, and I can definitely recommend it to some managers that work closely with developers. And that book will give you an idea on how much can be actually achieved with APIs when they are built in the proper way, and what can happen if you do them in the wrong way. In conclusion, the Strangler Pattern can be a very powerful tool when it comes to replacing your old system or performing a complex upgrade. What's most important, it allows you to keep your business continuity by enabling you to run the old system as you gradually replace it with a new one. The key aspect here is that you minimize the risk and the cost associated with the big bang replacement that I mentioned before. If I was supposed to give you a good tip, make sure to plan and execute carefully your Strangler operation. Ergo, sticking to the rules of good programming definitely pays off in the long run. In my career, I was actually responsible for many Strangler operations. And one thing they have in common is that each and one of them has been very unique and required a personalized approach from my side. Like any other tool, it does have limitations and drawbacks. But as I tried to show you, the drawbacks of the Strangler Pattern definitely outweigh all the stuff that you get from it when you execute it properly. If you have systems you would like to upgrade but have no idea how to approach this and whether a Strangler Pattern is good for you, do not hesitate to contact me. I've been shooting in many different places, but I must admit this video has been extremely challenging today. It's plus 35 degrees, it's extremely hot, the sun is trying to burn me alive, and my camera overheated a while ago, so I actually had to take a break and go back to the air conditioning.